Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be with all of you this evening. And because I'm here in IIT Mandi, my mind was somewhat changed and returned to my scientific kind of approach to the things. So I will still speak a little bit about the nature of consciousness by using a very important verse from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 20. This 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is extremely important for understanding the nature of consciousness, because this is the chapter which is called Kshetra Gya Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of difference, of distinguishing. Yoga means mystical connection with the Lord. So in this particular case, yoga, or the connection with the Lord, is coming because we are capable of distinguishing between soul and the matter. This understanding, especially if it's not theoretical understanding, but realized knowledge which becomes part of our Svarup, makes the connection between us and God, because we clearly understand by this distinction that we are not part of this world, that all our dreams about the happiness in this world is actually dreams. So it's not reality, it's just a dream. And it will always remain a dream. And by coming to this conclusion, we emphasize our connection with the spiritual reality, because we are spiritual by nature. Just by mistake, we think ourselves as material beings who are needed material happiness. So this particular verse is very, very interesting and very important for us to understand. Number 20. Prakṛtim, puruṣaṁ, caiva, viddhi, anādī, ubhau, api, vikārāṁ, vikārān, ca, guṇān, caiva, viddhi, prakṛti-sambhavān, prakṛtim puruṣaṁ caiva, prakṛtim puruṣaṁ caiva, viddhy anādī ubhāvapi, viddhy anādī ubhāvapi, vikārāṁś guṇāṁś caiva, vikārāṁś guṇāṁś caiva, viddhi prakṛti-sambhavān, viddhi prakṛti-sambhavān, prakṛtim puruṣaṁ caiva, viddhy anādī ubhāvapi, vikārāṁś guṇāṁś caiva, viddhi prakṛti-sambhavān. Prakṛtim, material nature. Puruṣam, the living entities. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Viddhi, you must know. Anādī, without beginning. Ubhau, both. Api, also. Vikārān, transformations. Cha, also. Guṇān, the three modes of nature. Cha, also. Caiva, certainly. Viddhy, no. Prakriti, material nature. Sambhavān, produced of. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of nature. Purport. By the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both individual soul and the Supersoul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul and the embodied, that is embodied, and enjoying the activities of body is the puruṣa, or the living entity. He is one knower and the other is the Supersoul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the Supersoul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is in the category of his energy, and the Supersoul is the category of his personal expansion. Both material nature and the living entities are eternal. That is to say that they existed before the creation. The material manifestations is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also the living entities, but the living entities are the superior energy. Both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and then it was required, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of Mahat Tattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming or force of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with the material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. In the scriptures, the Lord say that those attracted by the material nature are undergoing hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature is by the three modes are also production of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect of living entities are due to the body. As far as the spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. Prakṛtim puruṣaṁ caiva viddhy anādī ubhāv api vikārāṁś guṇāṁś caiva viddhi prakṛti-sambhavān. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vijnana Goswami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi paschatya deshatarine vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ajanulambita bhujo kanakavadatu sankirtanaika pitaro kamalaya taksha Vishwambaro dvijavaro yugadharma palo Vande jagat priyakaro karunavataro Yantah pravishya mama vachim imam prasuptam Sanjivayata kila shakti daraksvadhamna Anyamsya hasta charana shravana dvagadim Pranannamo bhagavate puruṣaya tubhyam Swasyastu vishwasya kalaf prasidatam Dayantu bhutani shivam mithodhiya Manascha badram bhajatata doksaje Aveshyatam no matir apyahaitu ki. Hare Krishna. So one very important point of this verse is that both prakriti and puruṣa, the spirit soul, the particle of consciousness, which is the experiencer of this material energy, and the material energy itself, they are all eternal. There are many different varieties of spiritual philosophy, and in many religions, people are saying that the soul was created by God. And as soon as we propose this notion that the soul was created, we come into very difficult problems. Because if soul was created by God, then God created us the way we are, and therefore He is responsible for all our sufferings. Ultimately, He is bad guy, and the natural conclusion of this religion, even if God exists, who cares? He is not good. He is responsible for our sufferings. Look how much suffering is there in the world. So it's very important from the very beginning to understand that soul was not created. Soul is not creation. Soul is coexistent with the Lord. It's His energy, and the source of energy cannot exist without the energy. The matter is the part of reality, it's eternal part of reality. It undergoes different changes, but the soul is equally the part of reality, it's eternal. That's the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ajo pisana vyayatma bhutanam ishvara pisan. That's the fourth chapter. But anyway, he's talking about himself. He says, what is this? Ajo nityam shashvatayam purana. He is explaining this by quoting basically Katha Upanishad. And in this verse, it is again and again said that God didn't create the soul. The soul always existed. The soul is equally the part of the Lord, and therefore He is not responsible for our sufferings. Srila Prabhupada explains this point in a very beautiful way in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He says that, we all have notion of absolute truth. There should be the absolute truth, the stable, eternally existing reality. And the absolute truth, by definition, has to be all-encompassing. It has to include everything. So he says that absolute truth by nature has these two constituencies: huge, unlimited, and minute. Unless these two consequences, the two constituencies are there, the absolute truth will not remain absolute truth. To be all-encompassing, it has to have both elements. What we call God is this all-pervading, huge, unlimited portion of the absolute truth of the Spirit. But there has to be counterpart of it for completeness sake. So we are these minute particles of Spirit, and therefore we are not created. Therefore, He is not responsible for our sufferings. And because we have consciousness implies freedom. Because consciousness means you're making the choice, you're making the conscious choice. So whatever you have, whatever you're experiencing here is your choice. You wanted to experience something like this because you had some dreams. So that's the first point which Krishna makes in this verse, that puruṣaṁ prakṛtiṁ caiva viddhy anādī ubhāv. And very aptly he calls, according to Sankhya philosophy, soul puruṣa. The literal meaning of puruṣa means puruṣate iti puruṣa, the somebody who is sleeping in the puru, in the city of this body is puruṣa. But the conventional meaning of puruṣa is enjoyer, experiencer. He calls the soul enjoyer. Enjoyer means experience. Enjoyer doesn't mean I only enjoy. Enjoyer means I'm undergoing these experiences. And for these experiences, I'm here. People, they pay a lot of money just to experience something. They go to Disneyland, and they go to this, absolutely useless engagement. But they like it because this is now nature. We want to experience different things. People go somewhere deep into the ocean, putting all this crazy stuff. Once I was invited to do it. It's such a horrible experience. But because by nature we want to expand the sphere of our experience, and therefore we're here. And this existence and being in this, tabernacle, as Prabhupada would say, of this body, in this covering of this body, it gives us different experiences. We can do many different things. So Krishna calls us puruṣa, and it's a very important point which we have to always remember. We are conscious. And then he says prakriti. Prakriti, literally it means, capable of doing something huge. Prakriti means material nature, and by this very name, it means that it's very expansive energy of the Lord. There is minute puruṣa, minute soul, which wants to experience different experiences, both sufferings and enjoyment in this material world. And there is prakriti. And then Krishna says that vikārāṁś guṇāṁ caiva viddhy prakṛti-sambhavān. That these two energies of the Lord, which are eternal and which have different ontological statuses. Prakriti is not experiencing anything. Prakriti is unconscious. Puruṣa is conscious. When they are coming together, then the place of, then the changes, the vikār, the transformations take place. First of all, Krishna says, they anādī. Anādī means eternal. Eternal means unchangeable. The soul is unchanged. Krishna also from the very beginning, he says this in Bhagavad Gita, in the famous verse that the body undergoes changes from the childhood to old age and ultimately dies, but the soul doesn't change. It's really amazing, and we can experience all this. Body really changes. Body changes drastically. Soul doesn't change. This feeling I am is the same. The little boy is there, the adult is there, old man is there. There's no difference in feeling. The difference is in the reflection in the mirror. Definitely there is difference. You come there and you're looking at yourself and you couldn't recognize yourself. What happened to you? But there is some constant feeling, I am this. This everyone can understand. No matter how old we are, we may be 5-year-old or 90-year-old or 100-year-old, the same feeling. Soul does not get old. That everyone can agree. That everyone has an experience of. The mind can be tired, the body can be completely useless, but the soul is the same, the consciousness is the same. But when we come, and that's a very important point, when we come in contact with the matter, then the transformations start taking place. And we are completely bewildered by this transformation, because the soul, being conscious, places his consciousness into all these transformations. The 3 major transformations which every one of us undergoes during the day is these 3 kinds of states of consciousness: sleep, dreams, deep sleep, and wakeful state. These 4 states of consciousness, they are transformations of our consciousness. The consciousness is the same, but at the same time, because we're absorbed in these experiences, in these 3 states of consciousness, we think it's different. Ultimately, I'm the same, whether I'm dreaming, and I may dream so many different things. I may dream that I'm flying in the sky. Did you have such dreams? I'm flying, very nice. Or you may dream something else. You may dream this, then you wake up. And Krishna explains that wakeful state is when the predominance of goodness is there. When sattva guna is predominant, then we wake up. That's basically how the modes of nature influencing the states of our consciousness. When we come in contact with material nature, then the consciousness starts changing, even though the consciousness itself by nature is unchangeable. But due to this contact with the nature, we sometimes awake, sometimes we feel asleep. If the lecture goes too long, people happily go to sleep because, it's a spiritual subject matter. You become very peaceful after hearing this, and then your, alpha wave comes, and the alpha wave gives you experience of, peaceful dreaming state. And then, you have these dreams. Dreams is rajasic consciousness. It's also very important. Krishna explains this in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the dreaming state, when we have this strange kind of experiences, all kinds of different experiences during the dream, is the result of Rajagun. When Sattvagun is there, we are present now. We're experiencing the present moment. Dream is some sort of illusory thing, and that's the condition when the rajas is predominant. And we can also see that when we are very rajasic, when our mind, even in a wakeful state, now, when rajas is influencing our consciousness, then we always are somewhere else. We are not here. We always, when the rajas comes, I will be happy when I pass my exam. or I will be happy when I get my degree, or I will be happy when I got a very good job, or I will be happy when I get married, or how I will be happy when the vacations finally will come. You know, you're always in the future. This is dream. You know, most of the people, even though they're so-called awake, they're dreaming. Because they're in the future, you know, how I will enjoy this experience or that experience. They're never in present. Somehow or other, mind doesn't like being at the present, you know. Mind always likes to be somewhere else, you know. So sattva gun means the ability to be now. To be now and experience what is going on now and be concentrated on this, that's sattva gun. And we will explain a little later why it is so important to be in sattva, because actually only sattva can give us the experience of happiness. The subjective experience of happiness is only happening when sattva is predominant within our consciousness, within our conditioned consciousness. And then, you know, deep sleep is deep state of ignorance when we're not aware about anything. You know, in the wakeful state, we're aware about the environment. In the dreaming state, we're only aware about the different, you know, movies which are going on in our mind. You know, the soul, the consciousness of the soul get disconnected from the senses of the body. And therefore, the senses, because the senses are disconnected, we are not experiencing anything external. In the dream, we're experiencing whatever is produced by the mind. Basically, what is happening in the dream, we are, you know, again, reliving different experiences which we had in the wakeful state to kind of sort it out. To kind of, you know, make it more complete. And, you know, Baladev Vidyabhushan even explains that sometimes we work out some of our karma in the dream. Because we have to experience some karma. And, you know, 24 hours is not enough. Our wakeful time is not enough to experience all the karma. So Krishna gives us some sufferings in the dream. And by experiencing this, we are getting rid of part of our karma. But it's very important also to understand, if we are rajasic, we are living in a dream. We are not really wakeful. Most of the people, they're just, you know, they're half asleep. You know, they may look like, you know, waking, but, you know, if you probe them, you will understand they're just, you know, in some other dreaming state. They're mostly living in the mind. And then when the consciousness of the soul is disconnected from the mind, and the consciousness of the soul is coming closer to its original consciousness, then it is called deep sleep. But in deep sleep, you remain the same. And Upanishads, they give this proof. When you wake up from the deep sleep, what you say? Oh, I slept so nicely. And because there is this pronoun, I slept so nicely, it's your experience. So there is some sort of experience even in the deep sleep. You know, you're completely unaware. Actually, this is the only happy moments in our life. When we're in complete deep sleep, you know, otherwise we're always in anxiety, always disturbed, this and that, everything goes wrong, not the way we like, but in the deep sleep, everything is fine, no problem. You know, about our wakeful experience, we may say sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's miserable. About our dreaming experience, sometimes we say it was such a nice dream, sometimes we say it was such a horrible dream, it was a nightmare. About deep sleep, everyone agrees it's a nice experience. But it's experience of the same soul, the consciousness is the same, and that's the proof that the consciousness itself is not changing. It's just the content of the consciousness is changing. The consciousness itself is stable. It's unchanging. It's unchanging during the lifetime. It's unchanging during the different state of consciousness. I'm the same, and actually I am blissful, because this experience of little bliss, of little glimpse of the bliss, is there in deep sleep, in this state of deep sleep, which is always very nice, pleasant experience. So this is what Krishna says, that all the vikāras, all the transformations are taking place in the gunas, and the gunas entering or constituting our gross and subtle matter, they give this sort of changing experience. And we're trying to change this, that. Ultimately it's all very boring kind of stuff. So it's ultimately useless. So what I wanted also to talk a little bit today about these changes of consciousness. That's very important. The mechanism of the changes which take place in the conditioned consciousness is very important to understand. Because that's what we're striving for, and we want to have pleasant experience. Does anyone wants to have miserable experience? Is there any pervert here? There's no. Okay. Good news. So, yes, we want to have pleasurable experience. Therefore, we have to know the different states of consciousness. The first thing which we have to know is that even though the consciousness is unchangeable and the same, when it comes in contact with matter, it can expand and it can contract. The pressure of the material energy is huge, and under the pressure of material energy, the consciousness gets contracted. This contracted consciousness is, under the influence, contracted consciousness under the influence of material energy is a very important stage of our development. And what is being explained is that the consciousness can have 5 different stages of development, according to the extent of contraction or expansion. When the consciousness is totally contracted, and we see how we can know that there is consciousness. Again, in some other spiritual traditions, people don't understand. Actually, nobody understands what is consciousness. It's so difficult to understand. But Vedic literature is very clear. It says that if particular entity undergoes stages of growth, producing byproducts, staying for some time, decaying, and ultimately death, that's the sign, the lakshana, that there is consciousness. This chair doesn't grow. Luckily it doesn't grow, and it doesn't produce little chairs. It remains the same. And that's a good proof or the good sign that there is no consciousness. Consciousness being dynamic, the soul, spirit soul being dynamic, when it comes to matter, it initiates changes. And these changes of these 6 kinds, it grows, first of all, then it remains for some time, it creates different byproducts of, reproduces itself, and then gradually decays and dies. So, and therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains this evolution of consciousness. He says that the consciousness can be of 5 stages. And the lower state of consciousness is the state of consciousness where the consciousness is completely contracted. It's very, very contracted, compact, and it hardly manifests itself. This contracted consciousness, which is called achādita cetasa. Achādita cetasa means completely contracted consciousness, is the state of consciousness which is in the plants. The plants, trees, they have some sort of consciousness. Many people from different spiritual traditions, they will not agree with this. They will say trees don't have consciousness. But we say, no, trees have consciousness because they can produce, they can grow. There is dynamic force. The matter itself is inert. It doesn't move, it doesn't change on its own. It's only the consciousness which pushes the matter to change. And pushes the matter to organize. The matter can change, no doubt about it, but what is the direction of the changes which take place in the matter? It can only decay. It cannot produce something higher, right? This microphone can be destroyed, no doubt about it, in the natural course of time. It will be destroyed, but it cannot grow. It cannot improve itself. This microphone cannot really become better version of himself. Whereas the living entity can do this because it's dynamic, it's changing. So then it's very interesting because after today's discussion with Professor Behera, somebody approached me and he said, that I read an article about the consciousness in the plants. And the authors, they argue that plants have more developed consciousness than human beings. What does it mean? It means they don't understand what consciousness means. That's the only thing which it means. They're talking about consciousness, they're posing themselves as an authority in this matter, but they don't understand what consciousness means. What does it mean to have developed consciousness or to have not developed consciousness? What is their conception? It's very interesting. Their conception is that because plants can react quite vividly on the changes in external environment, because there is some visible reaction and very quick reaction. They argue that this is the sign of developed consciousness. No, this is not the sign of developed consciousness. We have to understand what is consciousness, and then we will understand what are the stages of consciousness and by which undeveloped consciousness is distinguished from developed consciousness. The plants, no doubt about it, they can react. That's not the sign of developed consciousness. Reaction to the changes in the environment is not the sign of developed consciousness. The sign of developed consciousness is to know the cause and effect relationship, is to predict what's going to happen. When your consciousness is contracted, you cannot really understand anything beyond. You can react to the external environment and to changes, but you cannot really foresee what is going on. You cannot really understand the cause and effect, that this will happen next if I do like this. So trees, they don't have developed consciousness. The consciousness is completely contracted. It's within, and so there are two signs of consciousness which are very important. One is the feeling of emotions. Normally trees don't manifest emotions. At least I didn't hear trees laughing. I don't know, maybe somebody, they may argue that they laugh into ultrasound, frequency, and therefore we don't hear. But actually, emotions is the sign, definitely. Emotions is the sign of developed consciousness and the ability to see the consequences. The ability to understand the cause and effect relationship. That's the sign of developed consciousness. So the first level is in the level of trees, and then we have animals and birds, and they have more developed consciousness. And in the animal kingdom, there is also degrees of development of consciousness, according to their ability to express some emotions. Not only react, mechanically on the changes of the environment, but also express their own understanding of this change. What emotions? Emotions is not only reaction to this, but it's the experience, it's the level of experience. When we talk about experience, we talk about emotions. And we know that, for example, the cows, they have developed consciousness. The cows, they can cry. The cows, they love their babies. If you take their babies, if you kill their babies, as people do, there are stories when the cow even commits suicide. They commit suicide because they lost their baby. And when they go to the slaughterhouse, you can see they're crying because they know they can foresee what is going to happen. The undeveloped animals, they don't have emotions, and they, to a certain extent, understand this cause and effect relationship, but not very much. But, the more developed consciousness is, the better you understand what's going to happen. Like, in Vrindavan, I don't know about local monkeys, but in Vrindavan, monkeys are very smart. Now they're so smart, they're even stealing your smartphones. And what to speak about glasses? Glasses is their favorite pastime. They always steal glasses. I remember once my glasses were stolen, and as usually monkeys sitting there chewing my glasses, and I'm here without glasses, and I'm giving her, the banana. So I'm giving her banana, she's chewing glasses, she takes banana, and she likes banana, and she looks in glasses, and she doesn't want to let it go because it's good. So she looks banana, and she has, or it has some feeling of fairness. So looks at banana, looks at glasses, and understands that he has to give up these glasses. So she takes the banana and gives the glasses to another monkey. It's a very developed consciousness, because you understand the cause and effect. You know the consequences of what is going to happen. So you can foresee it. That's the sign of development of the consciousness. So it's the next level of consciousness. So, and then, when we come to human being, the second level is animals and birds and everything. When we come to human being, then we have Mukulita Cetasa. Mukulita Cetasa, Mukulita Cetasa is, Mukulita Cetasa means bodying consciousness, some sort of consciousness, some signs of consciousness is there. We can visibly see that animals have some experience. Consciousness means experience, but sometimes experience is practically invisible, like in the case of plants. In the case of animals, we can see some experience. When we come to human beings, it's not. Mukulita is human initial stage of. Then Vikasita and Purna Vikasita is the three last stages. Anyway, what was the second stage? He will tell. It doesn't matter, because we should understand the essence. The essence is that in the human beings, the consciousness is definitely pronounced, because we have imagination. This is the instrument of our intelligence, which allows us to understand the consequences. We can imagine what's going to happen. That's a big gift, but at the same time it's a curse. You know, most of our diseases and the problems, the mental problems, is because we have imagination. You know, something happens to us and we start imagining what will be the consequences. You know, the animals, you can see the animal, you know, lion is chasing a deer. And, you know, the deer is running away, he's totally fearful, there is all kinds of experiences of fear is there. And then somehow or other, the deer is free from this chase of the lion, somehow or other he escapes from this. Immediately at the same very moment, the deer is very peaceful. The danger is not there, the immediate danger is not there, the deer is just, you know, grazing the grass and very, very peaceful. You know, if the lion would be chasing you, you would be remembering it for months and months. You will be telling about this. You will be reliving this experience again and again and again. You will be disturbed. You would see it in the dreams. You would have it, you know, in the nightmares, how the lion is chasing you and you're trying to escape. You know, that's the, you know, the bonus, the boon, and at the same time the curse of developed intelligence. And in the same way, we're also always disturbed about the future. What's going to happen in the future? Nothing is happening, but you're disturbed. Why are you disturbed? Because you are a human being. Because you have developed intelligence. You know, birds and animals, they're not worried about, you know, retirement. They don't have any retirement plans, what's going to happen with me, but we're always worrying about this. Why? Because we have wider sphere of experience, because our intelligence is more expanded. Our consciousness is more expanded. What I'm talking about the expansion and contraction of consciousness. And according to the body which the soul gets, our consciousness gets contracted and gets expanded again because body gives this facility. And we can see in the Vedic literature there is, you know, stories like Ahalya becoming the stone. You know, if you commit something very sinful, very abominably sinful, the result of the sin is contraction of consciousness. Actually, the curse of Gautama Rishi on Ahalya to become a stone is nothing but the, you know, manifestation of what she already did. You know, if somebody is doing something abominable, the abominable means you are degrading your own consciousness. You are behaving not on the level of the stage of your development. And therefore, naturally, in the next life, your consciousness will be degraded. You will get the body which is appropriate to this kind of behavior. It's just a natural consequence. It's not something, it's not, you know, it's not the cruel God who is sitting there, you know, is scratching his head and saying, okay, you do this and you'll be called this. No, it's the natural consequences. It's just the natural result of what you're doing with your own consciousness. If we are intelligent enough, we have to understand that what we are doing, we should expand our consciousness. Whatever we are doing should be conducive for the expansion or for the development of our consciousness. We should try to avoid anything which actually degrades our consciousness, which actually make our consciousness more primitive. When people take drugs, when people, you know, literally, when people take wine, you know, like we went yesterday to this village, and the first shop in the village is English wine. You know, the first shop is there, you know, because people are bored. living here. So, but that's, that's the action which you're degrading your consciousness. People who are completely drunk, you can feel, you ask them about the consequences, they say, oh. Because by this act of drinking wine, you're contracting your consciousness. Your consciousness becomes completely contracted. And therefore, naturally, in the next life, you will get the appropriate body, the body which is, according to what you want to experience. If you want to experience this very low sphere of your consciousness, fine, no problem. You can become a stone or whatever. So what I'm talking about, that we come to the level of human beings, then there are also levels of development of human beings. There are 3 levels of consciousness which are present in human beings. The 2 lower levels are not very interesting, although we have to understand how consciousness manifests itself according to different bodies. But in the human beings, again, according to the development or sensitivity of our emotions, and according to the ability of, having this cause and effect relationship, or understanding the nature according to the cause and effect, there are 3 levels of the development of consciousness. All human beings, they have imagination, and because they have imagination, intelligence, they can understand the consequences. But how far we can understand the consequences? That's the sign, the indicator of the development of our consciousness. If we can only see the immediate consequences or very short-term consequences, it means that even though we are human beings, we are not we don't have very developed consciousness. Like I'm from Russia. You probably will not understand this example, but it's a beautiful example. I'm really tempted to give this example. One of the most beautiful words in Russian language is avos. Avos means, it's very difficult to translate because this concept does not exist in other cultures. Avos means I'm doing something and maybe I will get away from it, by any chance. It basically means that people, they know that there will be something bad, but anyway, they do it and maybe I will get away with it. So that's the sign of undeveloped consciousness. We know that there is consequences, but still we hope that somehow or other we will not experience something bad. But people who have developed consciousness, that, the further they can see the consequences of what they do, and usually normal quote-unquote people, they only have very short range of understanding of what's going to be in the future. But, we know that people in India, they say that there will be next life and next life. That's the understanding of cause and effect relationship. What is the law of karma? The law of karma is the formulation of cause and effect relationship, of universal cause and effect relationship. And that's the privilege of, and people who say that there is no karma. What it means? It means undeveloped consciousness. That's it. Nothing else. How you can deny the cause and effect relationship? You can only deny it because you have limited vision. What is happening because of our ego, if ego is very tamasic, it limits our vision and we don't see too far. But when our consciousness is not so contracted, we can see further and further and further, up to the seeing of God. If we understand that there is a universal law of cause and effect, then ultimately we have to come to conclusion that there is cause of all causes. Somebody who doesn't have any cause behind him. That's the natural conclusion. But only those who have developed consciousness, they can imagine this. Others, they say, oh, if everything has cause, then there cannot be God. Because God also has to have cause. But it's only because their range of understanding goes that far when everything has the cause. They cannot reach by their consciousness by the entity which doesn't have cause. They cannot imagine, they cannot really squeeze, they cannot really put this huge concept into their small mind. Because the mind is so contracted, the vision of reality is also contracted. And, and therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that, those human beings who violate the moral laws, who don't believe in God, they have mukulita cetasa. Yeah, they have some budding consciousness. The consciousness is there, but it's human consciousness, but still it's not very developed. The really developed vikasita vikasita cetana means manifest consciousness. Your consciousness manifests, and of course the comparison is with lotus. When the lotus is a bud, you don't see the form of consciousness so much. So the human beings with somewhat contracted consciousness, they are like the bud of the lotus. But then lotus opens up and becomes very beautiful. And then purna vikasita cetana, when the consciousness is completely blown. This is the state of consciousness where you're completely aware of the existence of God and you have emotions towards Him. When you have pronounced emotional state of relationship with this cause of all causes. So that's a very natural understanding and the criteria of the development of consciousness which we have to understand and to see how it goes. So basically, as I said, the principle which we should understand from knowing this is that we have to act and live in such a way that our consciousness is becoming more and more expanded. And we should strictly avoid all the things which bring about the contraction of consciousness. And also, when we take why every spiritual tradition, every religious tradition recommends some sort of regimen or some sort of discipline which will, bring somebody to the state of goodness. Because only sattva gun helps to expand the consciousness. The expansion of consciousness, the tamagun contracts the consciousness because it's the nature of tamagun. Tamagun is tamasic. Tamagun is heavy, and therefore, Rajagun is also contracting the consciousness. So only Sattvagun is expanding the consciousness. What I want to say, and this is perhaps the most important thing out of everything which I had to say, is that only when our consciousness is expanded, we really feel happiness. The experience which we call happiness is the experience of the expansion of the consciousness. I'm sure every one of us had this sort of experience when we are in this very pleasant state of mind, when we love everyone, when we want to do something good for everyone, when we are, we are so happy that we want to share our happiness with everyone on this earth. So that's the sign of expanded consciousness. And vice versa, subjectively, the contracted consciousness is experienced as something very, very unpleasant. When we have expanded consciousness, then the waves of our mind are very harmonious and they're not so congested. It's like this, if you have a calm lake and it's a very calm weather, and you throw a stone into this calm lake, then you will see the waves will be very harmonious and, because the lake is so big. And if you take a little small, bucket, and you throw the same stone into the bucket, what will happen with the bucket? It will be just... So the waves will go to the end of this, or to the walls of the bucket, and come back, and they will meet with each other, and it will be not nice. The picture will be not nice. So the same way is happening, the same thing is happening within our consciousness. When our consciousness is expanded, then, some disturbance is coming. Something bad is happening, but this disturbance does not create so much disturbance because our consciousness is expanded. Yes, some disturbance is there, but this disturbance is not so much. But if our consciousness is small, we're constantly disturbed because there will always be some causes of disturbance within, isn't it? So if our consciousness is contracted, we always will be disturbed, and we always will be angry, and we always will experience some negative emotions. But if we are, like sattvic people who really live sattvic life, they are more calm. And Krishna says, Ashantasya kutah sukham. How is that possible to experience happiness if you are not calm, if you're not peaceful? The happiness is the experience, can only be experienced in this peaceful state of mind. And for peaceful state of mind, you need the expanded consciousness. And for expanded consciousness, to expand your consciousness, you need to, live the sattvic lifestyle. And ultimately, your expanded consciousness will help you to see your real unchangeable consciousness. And that's the greatest boon of this expanded consciousness, because only when you are not disturbed, only when your consciousness is calm and peaceful, you will be able to understand your eternal spiritual nature. You will be able to understand that you will not die. You will be completely free from the fear of death if your consciousness is expanded. Therefore, that's the lessons which we should take from this verse. Yes, the consciousness, by coming with the matter, undergoes changes. But there is a direction in these changes. And if we want to be in control of our life, and if we want to expand our positive experience, then whatever we do should be towards this goal of expanding even our conditioned state, or even our conditioned consciousness, which is only possible by the connection with sattva guna, which is only possible by associating with people who have expanded consciousness, who are calm and who are radiating this, because that's the main actually way to experience something which is beyond our sphere of experience, by associating with somebody who has better experience. Luckily, we have these mirror neurons which facilitate us to reflect the experience of somebody whom we come close to. And therefore, the satsang is such an important element of Vedic culture. That's the only way to experience something which we are not deserved to experience yet. This undeserved positive experience can come through the association with the saints, and therefore it's so important to come together and to have satsang and to discuss all these matters. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Yes.
How can there be a material constraint? Because association with the matter? Matter is a material, and how you can...
Because you, conscious being, wants to identify yourself as the matter, and Krishna facilitates, fulfills your desire. You know, you're not constrained, but see, like you're constrained in your mind. There is a beautiful example. When the little, the elephant is being tamed, they usually take the baby elephant and they tie the baby elephant towards some tree or whatever with some chain. And because baby elephant is not so strong, he cannot really, or whatever. Sometimes they speak about the camel. Another, practically the same example, but very beautiful. If you every day tie the camel towards some pole, it's a real story experience. Then camel is peacefully sitting there because he knows he's tied. But then, if you don't have the rope and you don't have the pole, you just make a show that you're tying the camel, and camel will think that he is bound. And he will not do anything. The same, you have a huge elephant, he's so powerful, you take a little rope and you tie him, and he will think that he's tied. So this exact same thing is happening with the soul. Soul is very powerful. But because we are used to this, and because we are programmed in a certain way, and because we are completely, projecting our consciousness within these experiences of matter, we are bound by this, we are constrained by matter. Matter cannot constrain the soul. It's not powerful enough. But because we place our consciousness within the matter and limit the range of experiences of our consciousness by what is happening in the matter, that's why we become limited. So it's only the question of turning the consciousness away from matter and turning it more inwards. Then you will see the real potential of consciousness.
Thank you. You gave a very wonderful example regarding some people who get agitated very easily with different disturbance. Mm-hmm. So this is a sign of unevolved consciousness.
Yeah. Contracted, yeah. Yeah. So how we react when if we're easily agitated, it's a sign of the level of development of our consciousness. Definitely.
Thank you.
Maharaji, Pranam. I just wanted to see this sattvic affinity that we want as a happiness from the perspective of Yoga Sutrani, Patanjali Sutrani. So we want happiness, so we want sattva. So it's not sukham sariraga, again it's klesha. So is that sattva not the guna only? Like, should we aim for sattva or?
No, sattva cannot be the final aim. It's a mistake because even Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that sattva bounds you by the experience of happiness. So it's also the bond. Yeah, it's also a chain. It may be a golden chain, but nevertheless it's a chain. So sattva is not the goal. Sattva is the intermediate state, important intermediate state, which gives us, widens the sphere of our experience and provides quasi-spiritual experience. When we have window, of course it doesn't happen here, but in Russia, when there is severe winter, then the window becomes completely covered by the eyes. And you cannot see through this window. The covering of the eye is kind of separating the light coming from there. You can see some light, but it's not transparent. So what is sattva? Sattva is, but then you can, you can breathe, and you can, by your hand, melt some eye, and then you will have some hole in this window, which is completely covered, but there is a hole, and through this hole you can see. So this is exactly what sattva is doing. Our consciousness now is covered, but then sattva makes this covering less, and because sattva itself is translucent, this is the description of sattva. Sattva is luminous and translucent. Then you can see this, you can have spiritual experience through this little hole of sattva. Sattva gives you some sort of experience, and you see the spiritual light coming through this hole. Otherwise, your consciousness is covered by this rajagun and tamagun, which don't allow you. So you get some glimpse. You don't have proper spiritual experience, but you have a glimpse of spiritual experience, some shadow, some abhas of spiritual experience. But that's enough for you to strive for the real spiritual experience. So sattva is good because it gives you some understanding of spiritual reality. Not completely, but to a certain extent. Yes?
Right. I want to ask what level of consciousness we have before and after coming in contact with the mode of nature.
Before and after coming with the modes of nature. Huh?
Means when we leave one body,
when we leave one body, we're not really leaving the contacts with the modes of nature, because we are living with sukshma sharir, with the subtle body. And subtle body is very much influenced. In fact, this sattva gun, rajagun, and tamagun, they're mostly in the mind, in the subtle body, the influences of this. So the influences of modes of material nature are still there when we leave our present condition in the form of subtle body. And the subtle body has certain form according to the activities. So the only changes in the consciousness is when we change our mode of living, our mode of thinking, our mode of acting and speaking. And then the changes will be there for better. And when we completely give up the attachment to this matter, now we are bound by this experience of raga and dvesh. I like something, I don't like something, so we are completely between these two poles of raga and dvesh, ichha dvesha samuthina dvandva mohena bharata. We are completely, we are born with this duality. So as soon as we give up this game of trying to become happy and to reduce our sufferings, we can experience something higher. Then it will be fully developed consciousness. Fully developed consciousness is not a cheap thing. So let's at least come to the level of manifest consciousness, vikasita consciousness. That means we are practicing spiritual life. We understand that there is God, there is cause of all causes, and we are trying to live in such a way that it will not be detrimental, that our consciousness is not degrading, but being developed. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the incredible katha on expanding consciousness. So, Maharaj, I was also hearing your talk, last talk about your experiences in Russia. So, Maharaj, basically what essence I got from your talk is that, courage. So you had a lot of courage somewhere, even though like we are also in similar states. Sometimes we are faced with some situations where if we show courage and we follow what is right, what is truth, then we may not land up in many problems. But sometimes somehow we try to be duplicit and try to
go for compromise.
Complex situation. So how do we develop courage to follow the right path, to know the right path, and till the time we have not achieved Satvaguna or divinity. So when we are in conditioned state,
We see, as I said, because we have imagination, we have fear, and fear is actually increased by imagination. When we imagine what will happen, in reality it may not be so bad, but because of the imagination we aggravate the problem. There's no doubt about it. But by imagination we can also imagine what is going to happen if we do something which is completely against our conscious. We lose ourselves. We lose the ability to respect ourselves. The self-respect is such an important element of our well-being. To be happy, to be a human being, we have to have respect for ourselves. So, if we only imagine the material consequences and we don't take into consideration the, emotional consequences or mental consequences, I do something, how I can live after that, how I can respect, how I can look at other people if I am doing this, so then we can make the proper decision. What is proper. So we really have to understand that if we do something which is completely against our, conscious, and it's God within us who is saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We lose ourselves, and when we lose ourselves, how we can become happy? We may get some gain. We may get something, but we're not going to be happy in the ultimate sense, because to be happy you have to respect yourself, and to respect yourself you have to act with some dignity and according to the principles. As simple as this. But to be established in this, association is very important. If you associate with people, it's not difficult. But if you are alone, the mind will bewilder you and will give you all kinds of different stories.
You told about the different state of consciousness. So you told an example of the Gautam Rishi and the shark. So what about the stones? So do they have the life or some kind of, because it's a kind of thing which is very complicated. So plants and the things say it has, but this example is the kind of example where it makes some kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so just I want to add one more thing. It's the kind of, and also because when you see the Saligram Shila, so we also take example and we also worship and a lot of things. So,
Salagram Shila. Yeah, there are different stones. I think it would be a mistake to say that any stone has some consciousness, but some stones do. It's very much known that some precious stones, they have very powerful effect on consciousness. Some of them have positive effects, some have completely opposite effect, evil effect. Definitely Shalagram Shila is a manifest image of God in this world. So some stones definitely do have consciousness. Other stones, they don't. But it requires a little, developed perception to understand which stones have consciousness, which don't. Normally they don't.
Also a novel price kind of thing. It's a big problem for a research.
Yeah. But some stones definitely have, but they're not often.
Sir, we talked about consciousness in living beings, where the body grows and it divides. But what about the consciousness of beings which do not have a body, like deities? And how do they interact with Prakriti? What is the relationship with Prakriti?
Like what? What the example you gave? Deities. The murtis. See, this is a completely different story. You know, God can manifest himself in any shape and form. And when he manifests himself, you know, he's all powerful. For him, there is no limitation. He can manifest himself anywhere. You know, that's... And by manifesting himself in this particular form, he doesn't come in contact with the matter anyway. So he's just manifesting, he's acting through this particular form. It's a different category altogether. It's a transcendental category, how the spirit manifests himself or interacts with this world by not being touched or by not being influenced by this world, by the modes of material nature. Therefore, I was specifically talking about the levels of conditioned consciousness. So this is totally unconditioned consciousness. Okay? He is totally, absolutely all-powerful.
My question is how we can get our own spiritual experience so that we can move forward with more conviction on the path of spirituality. Fine. It would be better if we can have our own experience.
Absolutely. We should have our spiritual experience. And, you know, the spiritual path is experienced oriental. You know, it's, you know, some religious tradition, they say, no, don't strive for experience. But Krishna consciousness is about experience. It's not about belief. It's not about having some theoretical concepts and conceptual constructs. But, you know, this spiritual experience is available. It doesn't depend on your consciousness. It doesn't depend on your level, present level of development, but it very much depends on your sincerity. You know, it comes if you sincerely desire. And, you know, Krishna can manifest himself in a holy name or, you know, in some other way. So how the only answer to this is try to be as sincere as possible. God is there. For that we need scriptures. The scriptures is there. Bhagavad Gita is there. It establishes our faith, and the faith helps us to properly orient ourselves towards our practice, to make us more sincere, to make us more, how to say this, investing more of our consciousness into the practice. When we invest our consciousness in the practice, without having the experience will come. You know, and therefore, initial stage is just to read and understand how logical it is, how proper it is, how this is a complete picture of reality. Then the faith will be there. The faith will increase your desire, and the desire will invoke the mercy of the Lord. So it's a question of desire. And another way is just to associate with people who have spiritual experience. As I said, their experience, we will get some glimpse of their experience by coming close to them or by having some association with them. Okay? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.